jump on with none other than Duffy of Concord University in West Virginia. NCAA Division 2. We're going to bring Coach on board in a minute. Hope you're all doing well. Here we go, going live.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey mate, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Are you?
I'm doing really well, man. What's with the beard? Everyone's getting the beard stuff.
Everyone's jumping on board, so I figured I'd best join the club.
The club, there's a big beard club going on, mate. Yeah, mate. How's everything going over there? Doing well?
Yeah. I mean, everything's like pretty much open back up, which is, somewhat striding towards getting back to somewhat of a normal life. I mean, I think there's a lot more precaution. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we've been pretty fortunate being in West Virginia, and especially our county of West Virginia has not really been massively impacted by it. I think it's, a very, very safe place right now. So a lot of people have actually wanted to, come here. I think they were saying like houses have been selling like crazy just because it's a really safe environment.
Well. So have the girls come back to campus yet, or?
No, so we announced last week the plans and guidelines for moving day. We've extended the regular move-in dates. Probably we've extended it. I want to say like 10 days. So we're kind of doing a stagger start with our moving for the girls. School starts the 17th, and then we got girls coming back, starting the 7th of August, and then a few days after that. So, we'll move them back and follow the guidelines that we put out as an institution to make it a safe environment.
Yeah. So how's the recruiting cycle been going for 2020 and 2021? Obviously, you had a good 2021. You got a few of our girls over there.
Really excited, yeah.
So happy, man. I'm really, really stoked. And, going back and forth with the girls, they're just super, super excited, man. There's a lot of good energy about it.
Yeah, no, definitely excited to have a couple of your girls again. I think you know my personality. I think our expectations as a program, and the standards that we want to have. So it's great to have you recommend players to us. 2020, is another really exciting class. I think 2020 and 2021, both really good incoming classes where they can really achieve special things with a group of girls that we've currently got within the roster. So, very exciting times ahead for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for all the viewership and everyone who's joining us and jumping on board, thank you very much for joining us today. We have none other than Luke Duffy, who's the head women's soccer coach of Concord University in the Mountain East Conference. Very, very tough conference, but great to see this trajectory that you've had over the years. We've known each other for quite some time.
Yeah.
Never forget, mate, all the work that you did, especially for my lads back in the day at Chaos when they all drove out and there was a little bit of chaos there. And
definitely.
You went out there and you went to bat for them, and I think it's telling because I remember talking to you at that time when you said, I'm transitioning into this new program. Took the bull by the horn, mate, and really have created something that is, without doubt, quite special. And I, for me personally, I love the underdog program. I love it. I love being able to deal with coaches who have the ability to take something that probably wasn't at a level, transcend that, create their own environment, and really do what you've been doing, mate. So, hats off to you. If you look at the, from 2016 onward, literally 2016 was a 3-win season.
Yeah.
And then one year, it has been nothing but progression and progression and progression. If you look at it from the perspective of the conference, 2017, 10 wins, 2018, 12 wins, and you're second in the MEC. 2019, first in the MEC South. You took out the conference tournament. It was such a spectacular, opportunity, I think, especially for our girls. Ali had the chance to experience that. Yeah. And then obviously last year, 2019, what a run. 19 wins, 2 losses, no ties, and you went all the way into the tournament. So if you want to talk about a little bit more about where the program's at from where you took it over to where you are today. Talk about, that run. It was a very historic one, the first in program history last year. And you want to talk about as well what you're planning to do from next year, from this year onward with the program.
Yeah, I mean, when I took over the program, I took over, I think, really late. I think it was like 2 weeks before pre-season. So it was a unique environment for me to be in, being a first-year head coach, and then trying to find, I think within like a 2-week period, I was fortunate that my mum and dad were over. They just planned a vacation, and, well, the whole situation were a little bit just fast-tracked. I came, interviewed here, I got home and my wife's like, "What do you think of it?" And I'm like, "You're going to be the one who makes the decision." I can't. That's when he's making the decision. You're doing it. So the next day we drove up. She finished work at like 5 o'clock. We didn't get here until like 7 or 8 o'clock. Everything was dark, and the next day I said, "What should I do? Do I accept it?" And she's like, "Let's go for it." And then, from there, it was a matter of trying to find a place, figuring out everything about the program, really. But, we knew when we took over the program that we wanted to make it our own. And we were fortunate enough that, I've got a fantastic boss. And the environment itself is just a very unique environment where every coach supports everybody. The community is very inclusive and very welcoming. To everybody, who's been involved with the program. So just really fortunate with that. And then, finally getting my first recruiting class in to really establish the personalities that we wanted within the team and the culture. And then obviously last year, I felt like we kind of grew in terms of experience to get us to where we wanted to be. Obviously going out of the first round in the national tournament isn't something that, we didn't want the season to end, and, it were pretty devastating, making it that far and working so hard to get to that stage, because that's the goal that we wanted to achieve at the start of the year. And then to go out the way we did were a little bit disheartening. But at the same time, I think they needed to have that experience as teammates and as players to grow, to elevate themselves, in coming years. And just having the experience of making a national tournament were, very exciting. I remember we're doing the watch party, and, they knew nothing about what to expect. And it was kind of like, I wanted them to be really pumped up, and, our name went live on the screen, and the girls kind of were like, didn't really know how to do that. So it were probably like the most underwhelming watch party of the national tournament. But I think the whole experience of seeing their name come across the screen, and then now knowing what to expect, and the players that we've, recruited, and, the girls who are returning, I just think the personalities and the culture is now going to be in a place where, we have the experience to not lose that first national tournament game. The year before we lost on PKs in the conference tournament, and I think, like, just looking back at that experience, they had to lose to kind of get that taste that, we never want this to happen again. And fortunately, this year we got the job done in the final. So I'm hoping we kind of have that same, mindset going into 2020. But I mean, at the same time, 2020 is going to be a unique year just with everything going on. And, I think the biggest thing right now is we just want to have a season, speaking to the girls and, seeing them grow as people and, go through a lot of like personal adversity. And then also, being on campus when it hit and then us trying to get them home to a safe environment as quickly as possible were, the most important thing. But yeah, I think they're excited to be back. I think, the moving dates, for me, I've never known any team that I've coached be so excited for moving day, just because they know that, there's finally light at the end of the tunnel where things are getting back on track, where, we've got the date to move in and we're going to be around each other again. And now it's just waiting, to see when we can practice, how it's going to look. But yeah, I mean, we're just fortunate that we are going to get a season, and we were fortunate to have the season we had last year.
Yeah, I think it was a very standout season, and again, like going back to Ali's experience, I know that, just seeing her go through, this full circle, come out tail and have that moment, I think it was special, and we had chats about it, so it was a special kind of way to finish off your career, and I think it was great just from the outside in, and knowing our kids and the way that they go through this process, and there can be a lot of ups and downs through the process, and then come out the tail end and have that kind of experience was really, really special. So I know that if you look at the roster, and obviously we've got girls from international markets that we send over, Australians were part of your roster, more Australians coming in, and hopefully that becomes a bit of a trend over the next few years. You do have a bit of an eclectic mix of, different players from different regions around the world. Was that always kind of a strategy for you? Did you feel that what you had in the West Virginia region, I know there are kids from the West Virginia region that are part of the roster, but if you look at the MEC across the board, and just generally, I think I'm experiencing that a lot more in the Division 2 landscape. You're getting a lot more kids from the international markets, but they are of calibre, and I think that's a differentiator for a program like yours, and I think it stems from the athletic director right up to the president to say, hey, we're embracing this environment where we can bring in kids from international markets. That allows for you to grow because you're actually bringing a very particular type of football. And the reason I say that is I spent time actually, as you were recruiting the girls, Jamie and Bridget, for next year, I actually took the time for them to look at a game from last year, and I spent time just being a coach myself while I'm watching. Yeah. And I could see that style of play, and that pass and move and a little bit of dynamicism around what you do. So in terms of the international recruiting cycle for you in the market, is that something that is a prominent theme in your recruiting? Is that something that you look towards, being able to recruit kids from foreign markets? What's your strategy around that?
Yeah, I think, we just try to find the best players possible, really. I think for us, when we took over the program, we tried to attract a lot of really good local talent, or talent located within our region. But, we were kind of selling a 3-win season, and, you bring them on campus and, they can kind of get a better feel for what it were at the time, or, they could see a game live. And we really tried to establish ourselves as trying to get the best players possible. And then, as an international myself, being from England, you kind of are able to, I guess, like build relationships with international student athletes probably quicker. And I think the unique thing about this year especially is, a lot of the players who we've recruited have kind of found themselves in the international recruiting cycle where they've been very limited with what the, can they come on campus? Were they able to visit before this pandemic hit? And some of the players that we've got coming in this year weren't able to even be on campus and visit. So we were kind of recruiting, American girls who are somewhat local as international students, which was unique in itself. But I think with the international market, you really do establish relationships by, ultimately you can't see the place for itself, and you don't really know. You're being sold on how safe it is, and as a parent myself, you want to send your child off and know that they're going to be looked after. So I think we've been really good at building those relationships and establishing relationships where people know that, if their daughter comes to us, they're going to be well looked after, and we're going to have their best interests academically at heart, athletically at heart, but also socially as well. Our team, even when we recruit our American girls, for us, we want them to be all cut from the same cloth. Personality-wise, they're no different than our international girls, and I think just adding the international girls creates a very diverse environment where, they support each other in ways that my first year, we didn't really have, I'd say, because we had a lot of local girls, and then when we brought this new, unique type of personality in of girls who were from overseas, it was very hard to establish a culture and, for the returning players to support the international girls because they didn't know what homesickness was as much as the international girls. But now we've got the culture where, our internationals support our American girls, and we've got girls, honestly, from all over. Colorado, we've got a girl coming in from Indiana. We've got girls from West Virginia who are still 5 hours away. And I think that family aspect that we have within our program is really attractive for people to be a part of it. But yeah, I mean, the international market works really well for us. I think it's something that's added to our success. I wouldn't say that we lean towards going out and getting the best international kids, and that's all our focus. We spend a lot of time, recruiting the best Americans we can possibly get. But we obviously want to have it that. For me, I think it's important that our program and my personality, we have to have a diverse team because I think that diversity, really solidifies that team camaraderie. And I just think from my playing experience, I was surrounded by other international boys and we were surrounded by American boys as well. But we were fortunate enough to play in the national final, but I wouldn't say, our team was probably the best team on paper in the nation, but we had something unique and special. And I think if you're going to achieve special things, you do need to have a bit of everything. So that's why we do have a lot of international girls, but we also have a lot of American girls that are, from many different parts of America. We don't just want to, recruit regionally. We cast out net far and wide to find the best players possible who fit our style of play and who fit our program.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me into, I guess another question, just an introduction, I guess, as to you as a person and as a player, how you came to be a coach, go back in time. Who was Luke Duffy as a young guy growing up, and obviously you hail from England. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your playing experiences there and what led you into the US market.
Yeah, I think like many international boys, whether it be in Australia or in England, for me, I was playing at a really competitive level. I was a YT at Doncaster Rovers, and a YT contract is between 16 and 18, and in that 2-year period, you're kind of like an apprentice to a professional, an apprentice professional soccer player, really. You practice every day. You go. I think we did school 1.5 days a week, and everything we did was at the club. So we were structured to, hopefully play for the first team one day. I guess I weren't good enough because I never, made that jump. But a fantastic experience, and I think the coaches that I had at the club really imprinted me, to be who I am now. They were very, very hard working. At times, I probably had a dislike towards them because they made us do things as a 16-year-old that you're like, I remember cleaning the locker room 4 times and him still not being happy with it. And I'm like, it's clean. But it was just a principle of like, you had to have that blue collar mentality. And then, you find out if you get a professional contract, didn't get one. So what were the next steps? Wanted to come to America, and I spoke to one coach, Chris Waller, who's now at Chihuahua, who's a very, very good friend of mine. And he were like the biggest motivator, I think, in my life. And I think when you look at his coaching style and everything we achieved, he was a fantastic motivator, and he's just a great person, someone who I look up to as well. So my experience at Lees McRae, we were brought over to do one thing, and that was win. We wanted to win a conference title every year, a conference tournament title every year. But, if you settled for that weren't good enough. It had to be a national tournament every year. And in my sophomore year, played in a national final, and unfortunately, lost. And I think that does leave a sour taste in your mouth. Looking back, you want to win it. So maybe that's my, as a coach, that's definitely the level I want to be at. And then, going from coaching, I graduated a semester early. Got my OPT. I worked for a company called Premier UK for a guy called Andy Thompson, who, is another good friend of mine. Probably like being a player and then transitioning into coaching I think we all think it's going to be easy, but it's extremely difficult. And you learn a lot about yourself, and he was a good person, to have around to, show me different ways of coaching and to, really, I guess, like, break down things, what I could do better. And just a guy who I respect, completely. And, fortunate enough that he's got a lot of contacts, worked with the West Ham International Academy a couple of times, and then got a graduate assistant position at Len Ryan, and worked for Tom Gott. And I think everybody I seem to work for seems to become one of my best friends. And I think it's just because they, cared about you equally as you cared about them. So working for Tom again for 2 years was, a very great experience and a very humbling experience. And he's just a guy who I consider family. And, seeing him have children and me being there for his family and likewise for that, I think we can all want to be good coaches, but there's many different aspects in our life that make us good people. I'm not saying my girls enjoy being around me 100% of the time, because I tell them that in the recruiting process, you're not going to like me, all the time, especially in pre-season. We're going to make you run like crazy to get you fit, and you're going to hate me. But it's going to be a very humbling experience, and when you get through it as a team, it's going to be an experience that you'll never forget, and you'll enjoy being a part of it. But yeah, and then from there went to Queens to be an assistant, and then fortunate enough, worked for a female head coach, which was a fantastic experience. And that was where I transitioned from being in the men's game to the female game. And I think just learning from Katie Talbot was, probably one of our most memorable experiences, because I think, her professionalism and her leadership was just very tailored to making me a head coach and to set me up to be a head coach. And I think that's, my hard work that I put in all those places. I think I'm not a person who believes in fate, but Concord just seemed to happen at a very perfect time in my life. So yeah, it's been a journey, I guess, from being a player to then being a club level soccer coach, to then being a graduate assistant, then a full-time assistant, and now a head coach. So I think I've done the right progression. And then obviously being, I guess, fortunate enough to work for the Chaos in the summer, and being in that semi-professional-ish level, all those PDL teams that operate with different budgets. And I think, that experience of being with the Chaos was a very, very good experience. But I'd say that were where I think I established myself as a motivator, because really when you've got guys coming to play for you for 2 months maybe, how impactful are you going to be on them as a technical coach, or, tactically we had to get it right. But at the same time, I think we just, motivated the guys extremely well, and, had success with it. But at the same time, we did go above and beyond for them, to give them a good summer experience when things probably didn't match up or align with what we wanted. But you know what? We had the success, and I think the guys in the end just bought into that. It were a unique experience, and I think some of the guys, if we would have gone back the following year, would have come back again, and probably you'd have looked at them like, you're crazy for doing it. You could probably really move on to a club that has a lot of resources, a lot more resources than us, but I think they just enjoyed it. And then being a head coach now for 4 years, I think progression wise, I think you have obviously your professional goals that you want to hit, and then your personal goals. As a family, we're extremely happy here, and I think that really does help my professional goals in achieving what we achieved this year. It's a unique experience I've been on.
Yeah, it's definitely been a trajectory without doubt. But it's interesting because all the different experiences that you had leading up to today, they were all meaningful because they impacted you from an early age all the way through to your development, whether it be back home in England and all the way through into the US market. You've seen every facet of it.
Yeah.
And I think you can pull from those experiences. There's many coaches out there, younger coaches, who probably won't take on opportunities to, learn and grow across multiple environments, right? Sometimes it's a resource kind of thing. They're restricted in some way, or the regions that they're in don't have that opportunity. But the more I look at the US market, there is just so many opportunities to learn and grow and impact. And, places like West Virginia Chaos, and if I go back to our lads that travelled over, I think what you did there was an extremely telling, thing, because when you saw that it was probably not the best infrastructure-wise, you had to rely on your ability as a coach, your ability to be able to motivate and lead, to really create something out of, nothing, right? So when the chips were down, that was the big differentiator for you, and that was the big, I think, a massive growth and learning curve for you. And I'm always very, very grateful because, we had so many good lads come over there, and they always said, moving away from the experience, they said we could never thank Luke enough. He just he was so good to us during that period, and he made it memorable. So that's fantastic. Now, an interesting thing for me is this: there's a massive growth, and I dare say the women's game in the US is probably larger at a collegiate level than the men's game. In terms of the amount of teams, resources, and otherwise. But the professional game is also quite interesting. So last year I was a sponsor for a WPSL team in LA Salsa, now Invictus Feminine, in the WPSL. What are you seeing on the ground, whether it be in West Virginia, but just across the US, in terms of now you've got these girls who are coming through Concord. Concord is truly taking a step up year upon year and becoming what I would term a more elite environment for development as a collegiate soccer. What do you see as opportunity to the girls who have jumped on board, who have been part of the process, to be able to continue to grow and evolve, say in the WPSL and then further into the NWSL? Do you have kind of a pathway and maybe a platform for the girls to say, okay, some of those girls will say, hey, coach, you know what, I want to play in my summer months, I want to be able to potentially even go pro? Are you seeing that across girls that you're working with?
Yeah, a lot of girls, like recently, I think, I think women's world football or soccer is growing massively. I think it's, I think it's great to see, because I think it's really breaking a lot of barriers. I think the world in general today is breaking a lot of barriers just in terms of like what people believe in. And for me, I personally I'm a big advocate for women's soccer because I'm a huge part of it, and like the buzz that I get from coaching the girls is no different than the buzz that I got, from coaching the guys in the chaos. It is very, very unique. And one thing that we're starting to see is girls are, more open to saying, I want to, sacrifice going home at during the summer months, or sacrifice maybe not having a job to really focus on playing summer soccer. So we've had girls who, probably some of our American girls have, played summer ball. But I think recently a lot of our international girls have, really been considering it. And then obviously the pandemic hit. So it kind of, I guess for them being in a safe, for me, wanting them to be in a safe environment was the most important thing when that hit. But, next year I could see a lot of our girls wanting to play summer soccer. And I think when one girl commits to it, it seems to have a knock-on effect where, it kind of, I guess, breaks the anxiety barrier of, that sounds great and I want to do it, but I'm nervous to do it and be away from home for 12 months of the year, potentially. But I think when one commits to it, it does have a trigger effect where more are open to doing it. So, yeah, I think next summer we'll probably have quite a few girls who, go on that path. And I think that path of playing at that, what is considered the next level is a way for them to elevate not only their individual game, but, to also make a name for themselves. And you kind of see a lot of it now where, American and international girls, may not play pro in America, but are able to go to a Scandinavian country or even back to England. The structure that, even in England over the past 3 years has grown tremendously, where they can make a living out of the game. And for me, I think that's, the biggest motivator for anybody. If you can make a living out of the game, it might mean that you play and then you do a bit of coaching and that's your living. But if you have the opportunity to make a living out of the game, I think it's a huge opportunity. It's exciting to see that girls are really wanting to play during the summer months. We do have girls who go back to their respective country and, they might practice with their former team, or do pre-season with them so they can prepare, for pre-season with us. But I think just the opportunities that girls are able to have now is great to see, because there is a much better structure in place, and a lot more professional clubs are wanting to have professional women's teams. It's just a really good opportunity for girls to make a name for themselves in this country. And I think the success that we've had is making the girls more marketable, to play in the summer, because they're making a name for us, and we're kind of putting ourselves in a regional tournament or in a national tournament. So when they're reaching out to clubs, or clubs are reaching out to us, asking for specific players. And I think that's a credit to, not just the individual girls for the awards that they've won, but also for the team in general in, what we've been able to accomplish as a program. So yeah, I just think structurally, more and more summer teams are being created on a yearly basis. It's not just PDL teams for the guys, and there's no, mirror image for the women. I'd say the women's game is really starting to pick up, where PDL teams now want to have, a women's team who's going to go through the same process as them. And I think that's just really good to see. But yeah, I think a lot of the girls are, really moving towards being interested in playing in the summer. Hi, can you hear me?
There we go. What happened was one of our guys, one of my coaches was actually training a couple of boys down the park, and he was trying to call me through, and for some reason it just threw off.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got you back on board, mate. Where were we up to? So we were just saying about
the professional level
professional level, and girls kind of getting this platform and opportunity potentially in the WPSL. and then down the line, hopefully within NWSL potentially, right? So there's many different layers, and then outside of that, you have the global women's game growing at light speed. So being able to be in a situation where you're developing an environment there at Concord that provides that platform, and I think you're in a really nice spot to be able to do that now, right? You're actually attracting kids to the program from international markets locally as well in the West Virginia region, and they're coming into an environment that is kind of breeding a lot of success, and there's been a lot of success over the years, obviously, to get to that point. It's really interesting to be able to see that these kids will potentially have that pathway, into professional levels of play if they want to go down that pathway at some point. So the other thing that I wanted to kind of cover off was, just the importance of academics, and I saw just how powerful that was for not just any one of our kind of clients and recruiters, but obviously Ali Cook went through that process, graduated, and I'm just looking at extending her academics through postgraduate study, which is amazing. So what's your vibe around that in terms of how you marry up a very high competitive environment from a soccer perspective? How do you marry in the academic aspect as well, and how do you manage that with the girls?
Yeah, I think, ultimately we want everybody to graduate. If we, like Ali, were fortunate enough to graduate a semester early, so ideally we want to try and get every single girl on that same path where they can graduate in 3.5 years. So we do, we have a lot of discipline when it comes to academics. We have a really good study hall program that's overseen. I actually oversee that program. And then I have another graduate assistant who works it basically from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then someone else takes over from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. So it's open 12 hours a day. To be exempt from that program, you have to get above a 3.0 GPA, which is a B average. Otherwise, for women's soccer, you have to do 3 hours of study hall each week. And there's tutors in there for every possible class. If we have a business major, they could still end up doing a biology general elective, and they might need academic support by one of those tutors. And we have girls who tutor and get paid for it as well. So it's just another opportunity. Like Ali had a job in admissions where she was able to earn a little bit of cash during her time here as well. But Ali did some kind of like crazy pre-biology, chemistry, physics degree, and so credit to her because it went way above my head. But we have a lot of girls who come in and want to do that pre-professional biology program, to then move on to med school, or girls who do business degrees and then still move on to further education as well. I think the one good thing about we're not a super small school, but we're not like a huge school where you're in a classroom of 100 people. You are going to be a name in the classroom. And I think just having, knowing that you can have a relationship with your professor goes a long way. And, some people are just better suited for that environment. If we were in an environment where you weren't a name in the classroom, it becomes convenient for people to miss class, or especially if it's an 8 a.m. class and, we got back at 2 a.m. the night before from a game. It takes a lot of discipline to wake up. I'm not saying my girls don't miss every so often, but, we're in a unique environment where if they do miss, there's a chance I will find out from that professor. It might just be walking across campus and they might say, "Well, we're so-and-so this morning." I'm like, "I have no idea," but I'll find out. So, we do have that discipline where, we're able to hold them accountable, and it does have like a knock-on effect in, their outlook on academics. You're able to do a 22 credit hour semester at Concord. Most schools is only 18. So in the spring, we we kind of go from like the 4 where it's so like team based, preparing the team for the next game. We want to practice at a certain time. So we have that dictatorship where they have to finish classes at a certain time, but then we're transitioning to the spring, which is a lot more individualized. We're in the weight room at 6 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but that could be it for the day, and then they've got classes to focus on. So they might load up on a 22 credit hour workload, but we allow them to do any class they want in the spring, and then we'll just kind of figure out where we're going to do small group sessions in between class schedules, or we might have a late practice at night because people don't finish class until 6 o'clock or whenever it may be if it's a lab. So I think just them having the balance to balance academics and athletics does really decrease stress levels at times, and then having the study hall program as well really adds to that, knowing that I think Concord's a very difficult place to get bad grades because there's so much resources academically where if you're really struggling in that class, and you're a business major but you have to do that biology class, we really want to push you to getting a C, and you can get the academic support you need to get that C, but we give every athlete a PIN number, so you don't have to wait. If you're a sophomore, a rising sophomore, you don't have to wait for your year to schedule classes. It's not going to go seniors, juniors, and then it's your turn, and you're kind of left with whatever's left. All athletes at Concord get a PIN number where they're able to schedule the classes they want, pretty much before anybody else, just for the basis of practice schedules. And I think just like little things like that, separate us at times from other schools academically. But I think that smaller school environment is very, especially for the international girls, it's very comparable to high schools back home, being in a class of no more than 25. And even for the American girls, I think they choose Concord because of the smaller class schedules and, the ability to balance workloads at times. So, I think it does really set them up for, a job if that's what they want to do when they graduate. Or I know, like when I spoke to Ali, she, is thinking about furthering her education, but her degree's got a really good job right now where I think she's just kind of enjoying earning that money and actually enjoying the job she's got. So she's like, I'm kind of, going to take my foot off the gas a little bit in terms of like setting dates of when I'm going to go to grad school because I'm in a really good situation right now. And I think it is a place where it does, your degree does prepare you for the real world, which, I think goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that there are so many resources on ground at campus, and then, it's very, very intertwined with the student-athlete kind of experience. I think a lot of those kids come out the tail end and they become a complete and all-round person, right? Because they're able to manage a very competitive environment with a very, demanding workload, which is a big thing. Now, you mentioned the spring, and just so our viewers understand, typically you have the collegiate season is very compressed. So what that means is that you have a very short pre-season around August. You get into the season around the first week, second week of September, and classes start, and then it's 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
You go through, if you're lucky, the conference tournament, into the national tournament. You guys have been very, very lucky with that. When you get at the tail end of the year, you've got your Christmas break. Spring kicks in January, spring season. Here's an interesting question, and it really attests to the fact that, a lot of kids don't understand that. They typically say, okay, well, Division 1 is Division 1, it's better than Division 2 and Division 3. What I have seen in the last 6 months alone are high caliber national team type players. Obviously, you guys recruited girls like Jamie in NCAA Division 2, now transitioning into a D2 environment and or even in the NAIA. And I think it's a very, very interesting dynamic, because what's happening now when I have dialogue with prospective student athletes and their families, they might start with this notion of, okay, it's D1 or bust, but now they're really, really understanding, because media is showing that, okay, hold on a second, these kids that you might know have actually joined a D2 program, or they've joined an AIA program, or otherwise a D3. There are many, many entry points into the system, but you can still play at a very elite environment. And a program like Concord, especially in the school semester, may play a D1 school down the road, and you can be competitive, right? So did you want to kind of talk about, the different layers across divisions and what it means to be a D2 student athlete as opposed to D1? And are you competitive against D1 schools, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's has this perceived notion that, Division 2 is less than Division 1, can you get promoted to Division 1? It's just a different, it's not a different world, but, the schools are in their own environment. There's a lot of big schools at Division 1. And then you've obviously got your smaller state schools or smaller private schools at Division 2. And then, Division 3, I'd say Division 1 and Division 2 operate NCAA rule-wise very, very similar rules. There's not many differences between 1 and 2, but there is differences between Division 1 and Division 2 and then Division 3. In the spring, even in pre-season, for us, we do try and play a Division 1 school. It does prepare us for the season. I think the biggest difference there is they typically have a week longer pre-season, or just start earlier, depending on their class schedule and their rules. So typically we'll play like a Radford. We have a really good relationship with them, so we'll play them. We're going into that game very, very exhausted. They're going into that game with already playing a pre-season game before us, a little bit more prepared than us. But in terms of the standard, I think every program has their own different, philosophy and the way they want to play. When we play a Division 1 school, there's not really, a drastic difference between us and them. I'd say the style of play can be different at times. I think we try and play a technical brand of soccer, whereas they're a little bit more, direct. They have athletes who enjoy running in behind. For us, we don't want to play forward without a purpose, but especially in the spring, I think it's a really good opportunity, for the girls to see, there is not a big difference between Division 1 and Division 2. We're very, very competitive with those teams when we play them in pre-season or in the spring. And the rules, it's not like their seasons are different. They don't get a year-long soccer season, and we only get a fall soccer season. They have exactly the same as us. And I think ultimately, I think the nice thing that we're able to say to our recruits is, yeah, you might go to that Division 1 school, but, are you going to challenge for conference titles? Are you going to challenge for silverware? Whereas, for where we're at right now, we can, I don't think you can ever guarantee it, but we're in a better place to, really challenge for silverware every single year. And I think that does add to the experience and being a competitor. I think I want to challenge for titles every single year instead of kind of being middle of the pack, because there is separation between schools in their conferences. But in terms of operations and practices and even resources, there's not a drastic difference. And I think it speaks for itself. I think if the spring was recorded where it went down as wins and losses, it'd be quite eye-opening for people to see there really isn't a difference between Division 1 and Division 2 on the level that we play. If we're talking about top 10 teams in the nation, there's probably a big difference between us playing, I don't know, a Carolina with the national team players that they have there. But with the Division 1 teams that we play, there's not a drastic difference. Style of play is probably different, but yeah, in terms of like the way we operate, very, very comparable. And then when we do get to play them, it's a very competitive game. And I think that speaks for itself that those schools want to play us in the spring because, they don't just want to play us.
I think you're just cutting out a little bit, Luke, just for 1 second. Let it again.
They're not going to use a date of a play date against us if it's not going to be a competitive game. So I think that speaks for itself that we're able to play those Division 1 schools in the spring. Just because we want it to be competitive, but it's good for us to test ourselves against Division 1 teams, and for our girls to see, there's not a difference.
Yep. And I think that's very telling because, you go through this whole process of recruiting a kid. I'm no different, right? Because from my perspective, I've got to present back players that's going to suit your environment and, your playing style, and obviously from the perspective of your positional requirements on a year-to-year basis. So realistically, it's the same kind of discussion that I will have with a prospective client where I say, hey, these are the nuances. This is what you can expect, and it really has become a lot more prominent from the perspective of, if you look at kids who go on to play, post their collegiate career, they haven't just come out of a D1 environment predominantly. They've come out of, many, many different environments, D2 or otherwise, and it's becoming more and more prevalent now, and especially with, a lot more internationals entering the market. I think you're getting a higher standard and higher quality of play if they're in the right environment under the right coach and developing. They have all the tools, resources, and infrastructure at a D2 level as what they have for the most part at a D1 level. And it's really just a choice, I guess. So I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Coach, I'm very conscious of time, obviously your time or otherwise, but you know what? We've gone close to an hour. Extremely, extremely grateful to have you on the live chat today, and I know that many of our viewers right across the world got some really keen insight as to the collegiate landscape, what Concord University does, who you are as a person. Man, I'm excited for you, man. I really am.
I appreciate
you.
Man. A couple of girls as well. Keep sending them.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you.
2020. That's right, man. I'm excited. 2020, 2021 and beyond. I think you're in a special spot, and I'm really, really excited for what you guys are going to achieve. So.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It's a privilege. It's always good chatting with you. We have some great conversations, and just excited to see where we'll go as a program, and then excited for the two girls that you've sent us in 2021 as well.
I'm excited for them to be under you, man. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you. God bless you, your family, and we'll stay in touch, brother.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll see you, John. Bye-bye.
Yeah, man. Bye-bye.